we're talking about, I'd like you to shed some light on the kinds of risks that face wealthy families and individuals and what should be taken into consideration.
Thanks, Todd. Well, there are many risks, and unfortunately, there's no one organization or individual that takes all of them into consideration when it comes to fixing or addressing each one of those risks. Just to give a broad brush overview of what some of the more common risks are, obviously, litigation risk directed at your client's businesses is a huge risk, and litigation comes from customers or suppliers, or it can come from regulators or landlords or the CRA, and the list goes on. So you might say, well, that's an easy one to eliminate. We can just buy some insurance to address all of those. We can get errors and omissions insurance. We can get product liability insurance, counterparty, public liability, e-person, life insurance, and so on. And yeah, all of those are important tools, but it's very surprising how often insurance is improperly owned and improperly fit into the overall ownership structure. I guess another major risk is personal litigation risk, and that can be devastating, and it can wipe out our client financially. And yes, there may be some insurance options there too. However, sometimes claims are rejected, and sometimes there is no insurance available for personal litigation. I guess one of the bigger ones that we end up talking about to clients most often is matrimonial properties claims. And it's a serious issue. In Canada, for example, over 50% of relationships and marriages end up in divorce or separation. And I always question that. However, I can say with some degree of authority that so far in the year 2022 in Canada, there have been 2,780,000 divorces recorded. And by the way, on average, those kinds of claims, matrimonial properties claims, can be as high as 50% of your assets and or 50% of your income. Now, a lot of clients say, well, I'm not worried about a claim against me. But how can you predict a claim against your children or your grandchildren, particularly if you leave your assets outright to them? You may be putting family assets at risk. Another risk, a huge risk, is taxation risk, whether it's income taxes or estate or inheritance taxes. Well, here in Canada, we don't have a estate tax per se. However, we have a deemed capital gains tax on death. And many of our clients, including Mr. Diamond that you saw earlier, will have assets scattered around the world in jurisdictions that do have estate tax, such as the UK, the United States, and many countries in Europe. And estate taxes and inheritance tax are a bad tax, if there's such a thing as a good tax or a bad tax. And the reason why they're a bad tax is they're a capital tax. In the UK and the United States, for example, the estate and inheritance tax are around 40% flat tax. And it's not 40% of your income, it's 40% of your gross assets. And yeah, you can get life insurance and so on to address those, but sometimes just a simple change in ownership can provide similar or complementary risk relief.